I don't even know what I'm doing right now.
Oh, camera 1, camera 2. Camera 1. Live stream. Hey everyone, thanks again for joining us on BQLive. My name is Jerid Hill.
I'm Eric Deem.
And today we just wanted to come to you and talk a little bit about productivity.
Yeah.
So that's something that we get a lot of questions on. As a matter of fact, this week I had several questions from people emailing me, and I don't even think they knew there was a show going on.
Yeah.
So it's something that we actually get a lot of questions on.
It's definitely a common question.
Right. So at the end of the show, like always, we're going to do a Q&A. So we want to make sure that you're asking questions as we go along. And I think we're going to hit on a few topics here, and then near the end of the show, we're going to rely on a little bit more of your questions if you have them to kind of maybe fill in some of the other areas that you might be struggling with.
Yeah, some specific questions that they might have.
Right. And as a reminder, we have a new website called BQ.live.
.live.
So if you have any questions or suggestions or anything like that, at the end of the show or throughout the week, it doesn't really matter. Just send us an email. You can send it to info@bq.live as well.
Yep.
Right?
Check it out, guys.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to guess the shirt.
All right, guess the shirt.
That's what we're going to do. All right. So we got a new intro. Yeah. That was pretty cool. It's a little spinning wheel there.
Yeah, it's like a Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune. Oh,
No,
you get prizes for that.
We have
right?
rules though now. We have to change. Well, you'll make your little announcement for winners.
Right. So, well, that's right. We kind of had to clean up the rules a little bit. What we're
make
going
it
to do
fair.
is once a month.
Once a month. Yeah, you can only win once a month, guys.
Right.
So you can't.
Don't worry about 30 days. If you win the last week of June,
You can win the first week of July.
win the first week of July.
Why not?
So we'll simplify it a little bit. Once a month. So sorry, Dalton. you don't get a win again.
Yeah.
So anyway,
We hope you still watch.
yeah, we want you to watch. At least not in June. All right. You can watch in June, but you can't win.
Can't
in
win.
June. So anyway, we got this really cool shirt right here. This is actually a TV show, and so I want the TV show and the creator of this.
Holy cow.
Yeah, well, everybody's got Google nowadays,
Okay.
right? They learn.
And
Very
you have 30
quickly.
seconds.
30. Well, near the end of the show,
Gotcha.
we'll make the announcement who the winner is. And what do we win?
All right.
Well, we've got this BQ.live mug on one side here. The other side, we've got our cool logo. And we've got this
I'm really
awesome
jealous, guys.
coaster that has to go with it, right?
Yes.
So this coaster is our next movie poster that we see here.
Da-dum, da-dum.
Yeah, and so Eric, why did we have this movie poster?
Well, a good friend of ours from forever saw our first show and said that I looked like El Tiburon, which is Spanish for the shark because of my hair. So we played off on that and made a really cool design for Jaws themed poster and what is that? A coaster.
It's a coaster.
Yeah, coaster. That's
Yeah,
it. That's the word.
So we're gonna give away. It's got to have a coaster with your mug.
With your mug.
So
I want one of these mugs. I don't even get one of these mugs. You guys get an opportunity to get a mug. I don't even have one yet.
All right. So there's another area here. Eric and I, we're salespeople.
Try to be.
Right? So we're always, we're kind of friendly, but we're going to compete a little bit on occasion. We have to, because we got to pay our bills, that kind of thing. So, but Eric's been with us for a little bit over a year now.
Almost two.
Almost two?
Year and 6 months.
Okay,
Year and a half.
There you go, year and a half.
Yeah.
And, actually, I really wanted to give Eric a shout out. And every now and then, of course, I want the sale. He wants the sale.
He obviously wanted it quite a bit this time.
No. Actually, what I wanted to do was just kind of give him a nice shout out. He's been pretty good with us. So I want to put up his business card.
Absolutely.
Right there.
Look
so
at that.
you can see, you can call in at the toll-free number there.
Yeah.
With the extension 101.
That's an amazing extension.
And if you want to go ahead and send them an email, you can send it to jhill@belquette.com.
Yeah, and that's how much I'm loved here.
Right.
My business cards have somebody else's contact information on it. He'll remain nameless, Jerid Hill. He's also the person who's in charge of ordering the business card. So I wonder how that happened.
Yeah, well, it was not intentional.
Yeah, sure.
But, you know, I think I got like 6 sales out of that.
I bet so. Everybody, they see my name and they just instantly start writing checks.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. All right, so let's go ahead and get back to the topic here, productivity.
Productivity.
All right, so
it's a big one.
Yeah, it is, and we can go in multiple areas.
This could be a 5-show
It could
topic.
be, but we're going to try to narrow it down to one.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, and we might hit up on some additional points as we go. So there's a few areas of productivity that personally, you know, I've experienced. I know you've experienced. And a lot of other customers are constantly asking us questions on how to be more productive.
Sure.
So
we don't know everything, though.
No,
people ask us, we can only go so far.
We make it up. We make it up as
we
we
try
go.
not to make it up as we go.
No, we make it up. I mean, that's what salespeople do.
At the used car lot, we try to be pretty legit here.
All right, we're legit. We're legit in this. But anyway, so we're going to do order entry. Mm-hmm. Right, we'll talk a little bit about that. Artwork preparation.
Yeah, that's a big one too.
For DTG, because it's going to be different for screen printing versus direct-to-garment.
Embroidery, every decorating garment or
Right.
technique is going to be a little different.
If your printer has a RIP or base software, but there's a few things we can do there to help speed up productivity, as well as your shop setup or your layout. So, you know, what I want to do is just kind of talk a little bit about order entry at first.
Okay.
So what are some of the things that, you know, you've personally experienced? I mean, obviously with order entry, it takes time,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it takes a lot of time to put the orders together, but what are some of the things that you personally have experienced with order entry
Well,
to try to help speed things up?
what I help with, like in a retail environment, limiting the options really helps streamline that order entry process.
What do you mean by that in DTG?
Well, with DTG, you know, certain brands, certain types of shirts, certain fabric types don't work well for our technology. So, you know, narrowing it down to a specific brand or color or types of shirts that you know work well for your machine, for your clientele, stick with those. And that will really help eliminate. I mean, I had people come into my shop all the time. You know, do they want this color blue? Do they want this color blue? Do they want a medium? Do they want a large? And they'll spend an hour or two just trying to figure out what exactly they want. And that's not productive as a shop owner to let them just middle around for a $20 sale for an hour. It's very unproductive. But once, you know, if you have like an online fulfillment company and stuff like that, then we're going to get into this a little bit deep later, but being able to minimize your offerings. Well, actually, you know, if you go to like a really nice restaurant, most of the time their menu is like 3 or 4 things. That's it. You know, you go to an Applebee's or a Chili's, 300 items on the list. So by being able to have a much smaller menu per se, it's a lot more efficient for the shop owner and just the shop in general to operate.
Right.
You know.
So some of the obstacles then when you're facing having a whole plethora of, you know, selections, you know, would I imagine in direct garment for the pre-treating side, you're going to have more staining. So you're fighting the stains, trying to figure out how to avoid staining. Fibrillation or the fibers poking up through the ink, so you're getting spots all over your garments or your
material
prints.
content,
right? Material content, right? 100% cotton.
Where it's made, even,
and not yeah, right, exactly. Not everyone's going to print the same.
Oh, absolutely. Not even in the same lot. Not even out of the same box.
Right.
Sometimes will they print the same? You know, so.
All right, so limiting the options.
Yeah.
Is going to give you more control.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're going to be able to have a higher throughput.
Absolutely.
Now I've had customers that tell me that no, we absolutely have to print on what the customer tells me to.
Yeah.
And they struggle and they struggle and they struggle.
You can't allow a customer to dictate how you operate your business.
You're right, but in their particular case, their business model was such, and they've been doing it for years prior to DTG. And so I'm not saying that it's the right methodology, but for their particular product, brand, or what have you, that's what they had to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to change that once you've already got that in place,
Right.
you know.
So,
but I think in my experience anyways, most customers, not our customers, buyers of t-shirts, I mean, obviously there are several who are very particular on the particular brand and style they want, but most people just want a shirt.
right.
You know, they know Gildan, they know Hanes, they know Fruit of the Looms because these have been force-fed them over the years, but that's not necessarily the case that they are brand loyal. They know that brand, they know how it fits and feels, so they request that. But if you can educate the customer on why brand X is better than brand Y, and you help them understand how you're going to get a better print, it's going to save you money and everything else too. It's a win-win.
Right.
So it's just a lot of just educating the customer. We have so much of that to still do in this industry.
Yeah, and obviously as the technology continues to get better, not only on the printing side, but the chemistry side.
Oh yeah.
The pre-treating and all the other aspects, or maybe someday no pre-treat.
Hopefully.
Of course, we would know that would end up being ink related,
Yeah.
most likely. But anyway, so once the technology continues to improve, a lot of these non-productive areas where people are struggling with are going to get better and better.
Absolutely. They already have.
Right. Oh no, by leaps and bounds.
Absolutely.
From the original time
Oh Lord. Yeah.
to where we are now.
Even in the
Absolutely.
5 years I've been in it, I mean, I've noticed a huge jump in technology with the inks and the pre-treatments. It's just the machines, technology, everything.
Right.
It's much more. It's much more specialized now than it used to be.
Right.
So.
Now, also when I was screen printing, and I did this with direct-to-garment as well, but when I was screen printing, I would have order forms. And oftentimes, we can rely on the internet, we can rely on different things like that, but I would have a paper order form because when you're face-to-face with someone, it makes it a little bit easier to put all your information down. So here's a basic order form. I have one that maybe I'll put up here before too long on our site BQ.live. But this was just a generalized order form. This one was really designed more for screen printing. But you can see there's a front location, back location. The ones I used to use, the ones I created for myself, had sleeves. I had a hat on there. I mean, I had all different areas of printable areas. And then you would map out everything, put how many of every size, whatever color, the style.
Make them sign off on it.
Yeah, and this is the work order or the order entry side of things, right? And we'll talk a little bit, make mention of it anyway on the artwork side. We have to do that too. We want to make sure everything's signed off on. But on this one here, this was order placement and approximate size, those kind of things, because what happens is you're productive, right? And then all of a sudden midstream you're realizing, oh no, I didn't print this in the right location.
Right.
Right? Or it's the wrong image on the wrong side, which obviously going to slow you down.
Oh, of course.
Right. So the base, I think, for me, the way I've always looked at it is as long as I have the structure, formation of everything in order, it's going to help me in my other areas.
Well, I think that you'll become complacent too if you don't write it down. Sometimes you'll forget. Oh, I forgot their phone number. I forgot to put their email down. I forgot to put a quantity down. They just came in with an order. Here's what I want, and they walk out the door. And sometimes you think you'll remember all that stuff, and you got 4 or 5 other jobs ahead of them. And next thing you know, it's damn, I forgot. Right. I need to get this back. Having a form, even though you've done it 5,000 times,
right.
Having a form to fill out just makes it much more consistent.
Right. Okay, so we mentioned a little bit about artwork. So on the artwork side, I would do the same thing. I would take the form, I would have an art sign-off form.
Absolutely.
Right? Because I think it's critical that we do that in this industry.
Oh, especially
in the t-shirt industry or anything you embellish anything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? And so you have an artwork sign-off form where they are fully aware of what the artwork looks like. It's your final proof. And when you do that, you really want to make sure that whatever you put on that form, you're saving that. You can code it, the same, like a work order number, whatever you want, but you need to make sure that it's coded properly so that that you're not doing version number 2 when it should have been version number 4, right? Just kind of like your business card.
Right. That should have been checked beforehand. It wasn't checked.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did version number 1 on accident the second time around.
Yeah.
So,
but
you didn't sign off on it.
I didn't. Well, nobody showed me the artwork first. So I didn't even see it at the show. I mean, we had that. I had those cards at the last trade show we were at, and I'm handing them out to everybody. And then I get back to the office here earlier in this week or late last week, and that's when I noticed, like, wait a minute, I was sending a card to a potential customer with a sample kit, and that's not my information. And no harm, no foul. It was all accident. There was no intent there, I hope.
Well, I mean, and what happens, though, when you don't sign off on it properly, then you have to do that job over again.
Liability's on you.
Right.
So
you you're wasting more time.
Now, which I like about, like, when we talk about art prep too, is like if you have an online business, you're using like Inksoft or Deco Networks, you're able to kind of keep some parameters in that to stop some of that from happening.
Right.
Because when I had an online fulfillment company, when they would upload their artwork, they had to meet certain minimums. It had to be a certain file type, had to be in a certain, and there was I could code the upload portion of my website to kick out images that did not meet these certain requirements. And I had a disclaimer, I print what you ship or what you send me. There is no editing unless you pay me to edit it. And I've done it before. I've actually have taken an image into Photoshop, played with the layers a little bit, played with the levels and this stuff. And then I got ostracized by the customer because that's not what they wanted. They wanted that muted out look, and I thought I was doing such a great thing. And then after that, I said, I'm not touching anybody's artwork ever again unless they're paying me to touch it.
And again, that goes back to where the sign-off sheet comes into play, because you're editing, you're doing everything you want, and then you show it to them, and they're like, "That's not what I wanted," right? Or it's like, "Wow, that's spectacular! This is beautiful." Yeah. So you mentioned something about artwork, and really it kind of alluded to that where you would standardize your images, right? So like for example on what we advocate for our products is we'll say we want an RGB print file, so an RGB file, transparent background, a minimum of 150 DPI at full scale. So if it's a 10-inch by 12-inch print, design it as a 10-inch by 12, do a minimum of 150 DPI, right? And so when you do that and you have a standardized image format, what happens is, so with our RIP, we can do white ink, generating white ink with multiple ways. Yeah. All right. But the most efficient, the best method that we've found is a transparent background.
Absolutely. It makes things so much easier.
So when you're printing on a white shirt, it doesn't matter if you have a transparent background or not, so you might as well just have it in there. So that way, if you ever want to print on a black shirt or a dark garment, you don't have to worry about regenerating. Now, sometimes you get artwork that's JPEGs,
and then you have
background,
you can't do anything.
And you have to work a little differently in that regards. So talking about that as well. What about hiring out? Have you ever hired artwork out, or did you just do everything yourself?
I mean, I'm not an artist, but I'm a designer. So I did most stuff I did in-house myself. I mean, if there was something that I needed specifically drawn, I mean, I can barely write my name, but I'm able to manipulate, and I'm good with colors and balance and all that kind of stuff. So if a company came to me with their logo, or they wanted me to create a custom design based on their already existing artwork, I'm fine with that. But if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, can you draw a picture of my dog to put on a T-shirt?" I'm contacting an actual somebody who knows what they're doing. That's not me. Right. But I've worked with several artists. I've worked with at my specific store, I worked with a lot of private labeled brands. They have their own designs. They're selling their own stuff. So I'm just kind of doing the fulfillment side for them. We talked about this, the custom retail versus wholesale. Another video you guys should watch. But using a third-party art person, if they don't know DTG and they don't necessarily know what you're looking for, it might not work out either.
Right.
So you have to make sure that they're educated on what you need, and it's a good relationship between the hired out artist and your shop or whatever.
Well, sometimes it's just not only the raster style, it's also vector.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so vector artwork, I went to school for art. I've been drawing vector graphics since 1993.
You're showing your age again.
And I used to hand draw it before then.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it for a very long time. So for me, I always just did everything in-house.
Yeah.
And so,
you have that skill set. Not everybody has that.
Well, right. And so the other day, and I'm not going to mention any names, but the other day there was someone who needed a couple of things vectorized. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of neat. They're a DTG shop, and they just put it out there. Hey, can anybody vectorize this? Oh. I need it in an hour. Oh. And there was two different things, but they were simple enough. And I'm like, yeah, I'll help you out. Cool. And so I vectorized for them, and I didn't charge them hardly anything at all, just to kind of help them out. But at the same token, what they did was they realized they didn't have time to do it, and they just needed to rely on somebody else.
Sometimes that's the best way to do it.
Now, it's the first time I did it for them, and so I would advocate, if you don't have an artist like that or somebody who can do it for you, try to find somebody, because it will shore up a lot of your time, and where you don't have to worry about trying to figure out, am I going to get this artwork done in time while you're still trying to print.
There's a lot of good resources for that now, especially with Facebook and the groups that we're involved with and everything. There's some really talented artists in our DTG community and just in the industry as whole.
Right.
And I mean, people are very, they needed it within a couple hours. You was able to find it, make contact, and was able to help them out when they needed it. And that's really good. And people need to utilize all of that for, use those tools for your advantage. Don't be afraid to ask. Not everybody can do it. There's only so many hours in the day.
Right.
So if you need to be able to outsource some stuff to make yourself more efficient and more productive, like what we're talking about, then do it.
Right.
Don't be too proud to ask for help.
Right. Well, there's another area too on the artwork side is with the Raster Graphics. A lot of what we used to do this quite a bit back in the early days is we would make scripts for Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the scripting might be, we might put an unsharp mask on there, and we might play around with levels,
bump saturation,
bump saturation
stuff
up
like
a little
that.
bit, right? And so we did that quite a bit, and so you just double click on the strip or run it through Photoshop, whatever you want to do, and it'll run it really quick. Now, a lot of the artwork, we'll talk about artwork on another show. We have some
deeper
plans on, maybe artwork preparation, the actual how to tweak and all that kind of stuff.
Some Photoshop tips and tricks.
Right, and we'll do that in a future show. But so what I normally do, and it takes less than a minute, literally. I mean, 30 to 45 seconds is all this takes, and the rip, the rip can handle things very well.
Some rips are better at than others too.
Well, true, but what I found throughout the years I've worked with it is in inkjet printing, when your midtones and your lights and your darks are too close together, it just gets muddled.
Yeah,
when
you lose a lot of definition.
Right, so there's 30, 45 seconds worth of tweaking in Photoshop. And you can make scripts to do that, but I can do it 30, 45 seconds. Most people can if they apply these techniques. Yeah. And you end up with a print that's just like, wow, that's spectacular, versus one that, hey, that looks really good. And
then you see the other, and it's like, wow.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And a lot of times when you rely on the rip to do it, it could blow things out. Of
course.
So you want to control that a little bit more in some regards. So, and speaking of rip.
All right.
So there's different settings that I know when I was using the mod in my business. We at trade shows, things like that, a lot of times what we do is we'll print at the highest resolution.
Yeah, we want to show it off.
We want to show it off. We want to show what it can do. Yeah. But we also want to show what's the max amount of time you're going to spend printing that design. Right.
Worst case scenarios. What's the maximum ink's going to cost? We're maxing everything out.
Right. And so when I would print when we print at trade shows on the mod, we can go higher than this, but there's no reason to. So we max it out in our rip at 1440 by 1440, right? 1440 squared.
That's
and
putting a lot of ink down.
Yeah, the prints are beautiful.
Absolutely.
Nice gradients, nice. Everything's really smooth, right? But the reality is, on a lot of designs, you can print 1440 square, 1440 on the white layer, 1440 squared.
Yeah.
And then on the color layer, instead of doing 1440 squared, you can print 1440 720. So if a print would take me 4 minutes, so they say 2 minutes a layer, right? 2 minutes for your white, 2 minutes for your color, then you're going to chop that approximately 25% by cutting it down to 1440.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's a 3 minute
It's
print.
a little bit more, it's a little less than 25% because of the movement of the plate and everything. But, approximately, so if it's a 4 minute print, you can actually cut that down to almost a 3 minute print.
And that over the course of a day,
right,
that starts really adding up.
Right. And honestly, with 1440 720 versus 1440 1440, you very rarely can notice a difference.
See, I screwed up when I had my retail store, and I was basically the only DTG shop in town, and I showed my best hand. I printed the highest possible quality. It took forever to make prints. They were very expensive. And I should have never done that. I should have went with a faster print quality, or with a lower print quality with a faster print speed, until I needed to show better. You know, my customers didn't know. There wasn't like they were going from shop to shop like they do at a convention center where they're going from booth to booth to booth to booth, comparing pixel by pixel, image by image. They don't do that, you know. So my pride got in the way of, hey, I spent all this money on a DTG printer to print the best possible prints. I'm a designer. I know what I like and this and that. And that was not good business for me because it took twice as long.
Right.
I mean, you know, and the printer I had was 7 minutes a dark shirt. You know,
Right.
So, you know, 25% of that, I mean, that would have still saved me a significant amount of time on dark garments that I didn't do. And I tell everybody now, there's no reason to do that unless you have to. And, you know, you get into some like full photographic quality, you want a really good skin tone, stuff like that. Yes. But if you're getting just basic design, you know, there's no reason to print that,
Right.
you know, 1440 squared across the board. You can definitely get away with something like that with less.
Well, this was 1447.20.
Yeah, well, it's on a white garment.
Right. But so actually, when you go back to that, there's kind of a good point that brings up. What I've noticed with DTG, at least at this stage, is when you do nice solid colors on dark garments, it is better to print 1440 squared.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It slows it down.
It slows it down, but it handles the way the ink is being laid down.
Yeah, it
a little
weaves
bit
better and
it weaves
everything.
better, right?
Yeah.
So you get a nice smooth tone. So,
Yeah.
so some of that you do have to kind of know what your limitations are.
Well, and that
on
comes
your
with
printer.
using it. You'll know.
Right.
You'll know based on. You should be able to, after you've printed a few dozen designs, even, you know, maybe 6 months into the business, what art's gonna print in what way. You'll just develop that eye and that knowledge and just know, okay, well, I can print this at the lower resolution, knock it out, and
Right.
go. This one, I'm gonna have to print higher resolution. We'll do a test. I've been surprised sometimes where I've thought something would print not nearly as good, and then I printed it, and I was perfectly happy with it. I was completely content, and I saved some money and saved some time, and much more productive. So.
Well, on the Genesis, we can do a 600 by 600. We do 150 increments, right?
Right.
So a 600 by 600 print on a light garment, that's plenty of ink, right? On the Mod 1, because the inks are thinner, a 720 is not enough ink on your standard light garment T-shirt,
Right.
right? Now, if I want to do a super thin shirt,
Right.
you know, it could be an American Apparel.
3
you know,
ounce.
3 ounce,
Bella's
something
known for
very,
their
very
thin.
thin. Then I'll do 720 all day because that's probably going to still be too much ink.
Yeah. Blow
Right.
through it sometimes.
So even the garments that you use, you know, what I would recommend, I think, you know, Eric's kind of in the same vein, is if you play around with different settings on resolution, oftentimes the resolution in inkjet is just how much ink is being laid down.
Absolutely.
Now, the lower amount of ink, the grainier it gets because the bigger droplet size, you know, the whole science behind it, you know, don't have to go into that. But
Yeah.
so you'll know as you start to print, you know, what your limitations are. So I would just say experiment.
Yeah, play with it. Some colors, it depends. I mean, there's a lot of variables there.
Right.
You know, some, obviously you print on a red shirt, you know, you're gonna have some dye migration, even though it's not really dye migration, but you're gonna get some of that, not as much coverage as you might want to get, or your vibrancy and some of your solid tones might not be at the right pitch or color that you really want it to be in.
Right.
Again, that's just playing with it, you know. That's
Now-
part of the fun in learning DTG.
So another area of RIP that we have the ability to do, and some others might, I'm not sure, but we have artwork hot folders.
Yeah, it's super cool.
So what an artwork hot folder does is, if you can, you know, depending on your printer, if you can find a RIP to do this, it'll actually speed up your productivity on the ripping side, the processing. But an artwork hot folder, basically what we do is we have presets that says this has white ink, you know, use a transparent background, what have you. So you save these artwork hot folders, and then you drag these images that you have into those hotwork art folders. It automatically brings it into the RIP for you, automatically resizes it. It'll generate white layer or not, depending if you need it, and process it and send it to your printer.
Yeah. It's
So, you know, without going into a lot of detail on that, you know, just look for something like a hot folder.
Yeah.
We call them we have a couple different types of hot folders. Ours, is the one I'm talking about right now, is the artwork hot folder.
Yeah.
So,
It's very nice to have a system like that in place. I mean, a lot of your, well, I shouldn't say a lot, 98% of your big shops are going to have some form of a hot folder system in
Right.
place. They're not having a laptop at every single machine with the operator processing jobs.
Right.
You know, it's not that way. It's not efficient, and you have to train everybody much more and everything else. But we have a really nice system. It's really cool.
In another area I would recommend is if you have the ability to do any type of barcoding.
Yeah, barcoding is the
Right.
future.
So work orders, you know, we have software we've developed. It's not really for the masses because
Right.
it's really currently designed for our products. But you can create a work order by basically you rip the job, right? And this thing is watching for any kind of process files. Once there's a process file, it'll say, do you want to save this job? You say yes. It'll archive it. It'll create a barcode for you. You can create work orders from that, the whole 9 yards. So then when you have someone sitting next to the printer or a computer, you just scan it
Pulls
and
their
it just
artwork.
pulls it right in. A process job, complete.
Right.
It's already done. So you can archive them that way as well. There's other ways to archive. So really, barcodes are the next phase, I believe,
Yeah.
right, for productivity.
Well, especially when you're dealing with one-offs.
Right.
You know, it's one thing to have a 10,000 piece PO.
Right.
It's when you have 10,000 POs of one piece.
Right.
You know, that's when those barcodes really become increasing in your efficiency.
Right. So there's the barcoding aspect. Now, some of the software will give you the ability to archive in other ways. I mean, like our RIP will give us that ability to archive without a barcode.
Right.
You know, so this software is an add-on to that.
A lot of the RIPs will let you archive an already processed job. But you're not going to go in and edit that job. Once it's processed, it is what it is.
Right.
You know, so, but it's nice. I mean, if you know you have a repeat customer, save it. There's no reason. I mean, if it's the same job every single time, they come back every 90 days. They come back and buy another dozen shirts. Just save it, drag and drop it into the program, and boom, start printing. You know,
Right.
there's no need to go through all that.
Right.
So,
All right, well, let's just take a quick moment and find out if we had any winners.
do we have any winners?
No winners.
All right.
Oh, my gosh,
We've
guys.
stumped you guys.
Oh man, we stumped it. Look. All right, one more time, just for those who may not have heard or stopped in after we started. This design right here, you just have to find out what TV show this is from and the creator. Come on, I know a lot of people know how to use Google or Bing or Yahoo.
I'm surprised I'm not taking a screenshot and just put it in for.
Well, you can do that too, image search.
Image search,
But
yeah.
I think if you Googled, if you thought hard enough.
Yeah, if you just think about keywords that would associate to that,
Right.
you'll get it.
And a reminder as well, you get this awesome BQLive mug with this really cool El Tiburon. I'm not Spanish, so I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly, but El Tiburon.
I think it sounds right.
I can't roll my
The
tongue.
shark.
I don't think there's a tongue
Tiburon.
rolling on
No,
that
I think it's
one,
too
but,
yeah.
but nonetheless.
It's really
Right,
cool.
And then the other thing is, we'll go over one more area real quick, but if you haven't had a chance to put any questions in, feel free to send us some questions, maybe something you're struggling with in productivity, and maybe we'll be able to help you out there.
Yeah, maybe some ideas.
Right. So the next area that we want to talk about is shop setup.
Right, and this is a
Right.
big one.
This is, I think, probably one of the biggest. The
Yeah.
other ones are prep work to get you to this point.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And so if you become efficient in those areas, you are going to be, more efficient here whenever you're actually printing
Yeah.
your jobs. But shop layout makes a big difference. We have in our showroom, we have a countertop that has all equipment in a long straight row.
It's very inefficient.
That is not efficient.
No.
Right? It's not efficient in the slightest bit.
Excuse me.
But we do it because that's our demo room. We
Yeah.
don't have a lot of space
It
to
works.
make a production.
Yeah, we're not here
space.
to print shirts.
Right. Now, when the Genesis comes on board, we've talked about this, but we'll probably set up the area to truly show productivity.
Yeah.
And so when people come in and we do demos for people, they'll actually see what an ideal layout
Yeah, a more
would be.
real world environment. Yeah.
So what I put together kind of an ideal layout for what I think is a good shop. All right. So
Here it is.
what we see here is kind of like a U-shaped pattern.
You don't want to move around. You want to be a step away from everything.
Exactly. You want to move around as little as possible. Now, this is before you would have a system that could maybe run on a conveyor dryer,
Right.
something like this. So this is a heat press. So what you see here is on the bottom left-hand corner, that's our Pretreat system. And this, by the way, this whole area fits within a 10 foot by 10 foot.
100 square feet.
Yeah, 10 inch by 10 inch would have been
That'd been pretty small.
a very
It's a
big
small
feat.
printer.
Yeah, we'd have like miniature baby doll
Yeah.
clothes or something like that. But no, this one here this will fit in a 10 foot by 10 foot space. And it gives you enough room to work, and everything is around. So if you see the bottom left-hand corner, we actually have a Pretreat system, and just to the right of that, we have a heat press. 'Cause
Above it,
obviously, you want to
heat press
heat press it, right?
Yeah.
And then next to that in the corner is a computer, and you can see it's got a little sunglasses there. You might not be able to see it very well, but it's got sunglasses if you want to put there. You want to have a little coffee cup there.
Yeah, our
little pencil.
BQLive coffee cup.
Yeah, it's probably a BQLive coffee
Yeah,
cup.
yeah.
And then in the center, the heart of it all is the printer,
printer.
right? So you got to have enough room to work in between all these spaces. And then what I would do is on the right-hand side, you want to put your blank shirts.
Ready to
right?
be printed.
Ready to be printed, so you can just pull them right off, put it right on the platen. On the mod, you can actually have a second platen. I didn't really make a room for that on here, but you could always rearrange it that way. I have a second platen loading because with us, we can, with our tuck lock system, you can just swap a platen out real fast and actually get about a 10% increase in productivity as well, just by already having a preloaded shirt. But anyway, you would have your blank garments there, and then next to that, you would have another heat press for curing,
Right.
right? And then next to that, you just lay the printed shirts, right?
The biggest speed bump in the production is always the heat presses, it seems like.
Right.
And I always recommend at least 2 for every printer. And probably with the Genesis, you're probably talking a few.
Right.
It's so fast.
Right.
But the new inks are curing faster too, so that helps. I mean, nowadays, our inks are 2 minutes, and if it's just a left chest print, you could have wet shirts
Right.
waiting for the heat press.
Right. So in that environment, you may actually have a second heat press just for curing. So you might have three heat
absolutely.
heat presses.
Absolutely.
And the reason why you don't really want to use one heat press for everything is because with the pre-treating, you need more pressure.
More pressure.
And with the curing, you need less pressure.
Yeah.
So
and longer time.
Depending on your heat press, you're constantly adjusting pressure, and it takes time to do that too. So, that's one area. Now, one other thing that I used to do to kind of help speed things up is jerseys or softball uniforms, anything like that, where you have a name and a number on the back, right? So on the mod, what I used to do was I would use my artwork hot folder, right? And then I would take the image, the name of the person and the number, and I would save the artwork
as that
name.
Yeah, that's smart.
Right? And then I would just have them all in a row, and I would have everything listed. And before I was using the artwork hot folders, I would just process one job after the other. And what was doing was the name of the file was the name of the person. Right? So on my mod, I knew what job was next.
Right.
Then I would have a spreadsheet sitting next to it that had in order what names I wanted to go. And then I would also have all my shirts in order of sizes.
Yep.
So I might be doing all smalls, or I might be a small, a large, a 2X, extra small, whatever it might be. They could be jumbled around. It doesn't really matter. But as long as I had everything in order, I could just print one, and it just showed it up on my printer what my next job was, and I just grabbed the next shirt. I just look at the size real quick, match it to the spreadsheet. Everything's good.
Yeah.
Now, granted, that was a while ago, and a lot of the software now that's being developed can help aid in that too.
Sure.
So you're not having three things all in one area. You might be able to do it consolidated all into one.
Right.
So we talked a little bit about doing that kind of thing with the mod and the Genesis as well, to be able to structure it so where you can see what color of shirt, what size of shirt, all those different things.
Pull a lot more data.
Right, and that's something a little bit down the road. So
I have a lot less mistakes that way.
Right.
I mean, I still print the wrong thing on the wrong shirt, the wrong color, the wrong size. I mean, it's inevitable.
Right.
You're going to ruin shirts regardless of how many systems you put in place. You're still going to ruin shirts.
Now, what about Pretreat?
Well, hold on. Let's go back a little bit to my shop because it's a little bit
you
different.
You did have
it's a little bit different in a retail environment because I had my printer sitting right out in front of my showroom.
Right.
I mean, and you can see here on the far wall, I had 3 folding tables essentially. Okay. So my printer printed 3 up, so I would have an empty platen waiting for a shirt. So on one of my tables, I would have a stack, just stacks of today's shirts, blank, already pre-treated, ready to go. All my heat presses I was around the corner, out of the way of the customer. So it wasn't as efficient as a more productive shop, but in retail, I didn't want them seeing the heat presses and the pre-treat machine and everything. But it's literally 3 steps around the corner and they were there. But it allowed me to be able to have a stack of shirts, and I can pre-stage platens just like we do on the Mod 1, so that I'm easy just swapping them in and out, and I have plenty of time to reload, and I'm not moving anywhere. It's one step. I'd move from one step to the printer, back to my stack of shirts, and back to the printer I'd go. And it kept me up front. It kept me out in front of, so when customers were coming in, they could see the printer in action. They could see their shirts being done.
That's mesmerizing.
It is. I have a big window right in front. So back in the day, I can remember we used to go to a pizza place, and the kids would stand up, and there was a big glass window. You could watch the people making pizza, and the kids would be lined up watching make pizza. I'd have the same thing in my shop. I have a little barrier so nobody could come by back where my printer was, and they just want to see it work. I mean, it's just like the Genesis. People will stop in their tracks when they see that thing move, and they did the same thing in my shop, and that was 5 years ago.
Right.
But it's definitely, I looked at it as a centerpiece. Right. I want to show off what we're doing here. Not everybody does. This is retail.
Right.
So.
And in your situation, you had a printer that did 3 platens up, printed 1 shirt at a time, but you had a little more wiggle room in between the prints, right? Each print, because like you said, it might take you 7 minutes to print one shirt.
So when I got done with the first shirt, move to the second shirt.
Right.
I'm taking that shirt off, taking the heat press, load another shirt on.
Yeah. So it might not have been a real efficient layout for productivity. But in your situation, it was a retail environment. You had a little extra time. But
I was faster than the printer still.
Right, and as the printers continue to increase in speed, people are having problems trying to figure out how to stay productive, because I can only do 60 shirts in a 4-hour time. I mean, that's not productive.
No.
And so you got to try to find out what exactly is it that the hang up is.
Right. If I had a Genesis now, or a machine of that speed compared to where I had before, there's no way that setup would have been efficient at all. I mean, it would have taken me longer to walk around the corner, put the shirt on the heat press, grab another shirt and load it, than it would have been to print the shirt.
Right.
So it would have been much more efficient for me to have changed the platform around or the layout, and I would have in that case. But that machine was huge. It was 49 inches, 50 inches long, and 40 inches wide or something. I mean, by the time it was a big printer, I didn't have anywhere else to put it either. Right. So I had to put it out in front, regardless if I wanted to or not. Everybody got to see it, and but it worked out well. I mean, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of good feedback from it. So
cool. Okay. So the last area is like pre-treating.
Pre-treating,
right?
Yeah.
So, what are some of the pre-treat practices that? I mean, well, let me backtrack a little bit. From what I know, people ask a lot of, should I pre-treat? I'll just get your answer. Should I pre-treat both sides before I print? What would you say to that?
It depends. Do you have a threadable heat press? If you don't have a threadable heat press, then I wouldn't. Then I would go ahead and do that per se. It just really depends. I prefer to pre-treat and print one side at a time because I can thread, so I don't have to worry about over curing the pre-treat or over curing the inks. I find it easier to pre-treat and print one side individually. But if I'm doing something unique, like a small baby onesie or something like that, everybody who pre-treats knows if you get pre-treat on any of the seams or collars or whatever, they'll create a weird kind of shine. And when I would do like a onesie or something where there was no way to really control, I want to pre-treat just this little area. Now with the Edge, obviously we could do that, but with my pre-treat machine, I couldn't. It was just a big box, and I would let it air dry overnight. Because that would eliminate a lot of those shining issues that I would have previously. But I would still not do both sides. I would still only do one side at a time.
And I think I would do one side only.
Yeah.
Why do you think I'd only do one side?
Because you're lazy.
No. I got to print both sides. So I have a job that I have to print both sides.
Well, that way you don't. If you screw it up, you're not wasting ink and pre-treat on the side that you.
Well, that comes into play. The reason why I'd only ever do one side is because the more I would rough up the shirt, the more the fibers could stick out. Right. So if the more fibers are sticking out, now you're fighting it with it once again on your print, because you're like, why is this not coming out the way I thought it should? And so it's slowing you down as well. So, what seems logical on the the front end of it is like, well, if I pre-treat both sides at one time, then I'm going to speed up my process.
Yeah, not necessarily.
But depends on your shirt. Some shirts aren't that problematic. Most are that I've discovered whenever you're printing both sides like that. But yeah, I think it is critical though that you have a threadable, because that is a good point, to have a threadable heat press. One, in other words, you can slip the shirt on.
Right.
You're not just laying it on where it's 2 layers. You slip it on where there's only 1 layer. And a lot of tabletop heat presses don't give you that ability unless you have a stand. They have tabletop stands, or they have stands with feet, floor stands. Right. So that's one area. On the Pretreat side, I think is one of the bigger areas in my opinion. But what about people who are, they don't have a Pretreat system, right? And they're hand spraying, right? And I'm not saying I advocate that, because the Pretreat process,
it's the most critical.
You don't want to breathe this stuff in.
It's the most critical part in printing on a black shirt.
Right.
If you don't do it right, talk about efficiency and productivity.
Right.
You do that wrong. You do a test print and you find a wash, and you find out, how do you adjust that? How do you adjust up or down? And how do you really know? I mean, you got to weigh the shirt. There's so much work involved. And you want to talk about productivity and a downer for it. Manually pre-treating is probably one of the fastest ways to lose money.
Well, I know like an automated system, a lot of times what we do is we go in line. So I've talked about this before, but you have your pre-treat system. You spray it, you bring it over to a heat press, you put another shirt on the Pretreat system.
Right, while it's dry.
While the one's drying.
Yeah.
That's dry, you move it to the printer, and you just shift. So you have every stage has a shirt in it. Right. Now, that's how to get more flow. So you only have one person needing to operate that. They don't have to pre-treat a bunch of shirts in advance, because they're doing everything step by step. And then the longest process, typically the print process, becomes your throughput.
Right.
So you have that. But in the case of hand spraying, what I used to do, now I had a screen print shop, so mine was a little different, but this is back early days of white ink and so forth. What I would do is I would spray a shirt and I would throw it on a conveyor dryer.
Okay, just to
I'd run it through really fast.
Just to get the big bulk
of
the moisture
out. I list all
the
heavy moisture off. Right. It goes through it. And then, so when it comes out the other side, it's almost dry. I want just a slight bit of moisture, because what I want is that glue and everything when I go to press for the mat all those fibers down. Right. If I dry it completely, that's going to be difficult to do. So I would run it through. And so I had a stand that I would hand spray. This back before I don't know if there really were any Pretreat systems on the market.
Probably not.
And at that time it might have been new, and they weren't working very well.
Were there cars?
Yeah, there was cars.
Okay, I just didn't know.
So anyway, I would spray. So I had a platform. It was standing up, and I would put the shirt on there, hand spray it, throw it on a conveyor dryer, do it that way, right? And so I would do.
Did you just have them drop into a box?
I would drop into a box on the other side, and then I would grab all the shirts, take them out to my printer, and then I had 2 heat presses going. So I would use one press for drying, so I don't need any other 5-10 seconds at the most, because it was almost dry. And then I would cure with the other one. And then I would just keep doing that until all my shirts had been dried, and then I used both heat presses for curing. Right? So Smart. I tried to be as efficient as I could.
I would do the same thing basically. Once I got done pre-treating both heat presses were regulated to curing ink.
Right. And so sometimes though they're not going to have a conveyor dryer. Most DTG shops won't.
No.
So, one way you could also do it is you could spray your shirt and stack them.
Yeah.
Just do one side. In my opinion, I would only do one side, but I would spray the shirt and just stack them.
I still do that sometimes to like a shirt that's about 90% dry. That helps also avoid some of the crystallization and stuff too with what a heat press can cause. So I'll take a shirt that I've pre-treated, I'll put it on the heat press for 20 seconds instead of 40 seconds or whatever. Get most of the moisture out of it. Put it on the table, stack up my whole order, and then when I get ready to start printing it, I'll put it on the press again for another 5 seconds just to get whatever remaining moisture is out of it, get it back flat, and start printing with it right away. And that's just a preference thing. I mean, everybody has their own techniques and processes, and whatever works best for your shop is what is best, not what him and I say. What works best for you,
right?
And you have to dial that in. We always can help. Give you ideas and suggestions, but at the end of the day, there's so many variables on everybody's shop: square footage, air conditioning, heating, location, altitude. That variables are going to come into play. What other equipment do you have? I mean, are you doing embroidery? Are you doing heat vinyl? Or whatever? So you might have to adjust and adapt your processes and your shop to be most productive for you. This is just what we feel works best for us.
Right.
So.
Okay. So what we probably should do is head on over to our Q&A section.
All right, Q&A time.
We'll flip them around. Right? We're back.
And we're back.
Dead air.
All right.
Dead air is bad, by the way. So did we have...
Oh, we have a question.
We do have a question. Okay.
Do we have a winner? Oh, we have a winner, it looks like. I don't know if that one counts.
Hey, it counts.
All right.
His wife.
My wife won. I get a coaster with my face on. That's all I'm sure she wanted.
Well, look, Eric got the mug.
I got my mug.
Eric got the mug.
I got my mug.
All right.
Thanks, Brooke.
All right. So the answer is Gravity Falls. It's a sci-fi cartoon.
Yeah, this is beyond me.
And it's actually my kids love it. And look, it's the puking rainbow
gnome.
puking gnome.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, I'm gonna have to wipe off this table here after we're done. But yeah, so it's Gravity Falls. It's actually a sci-fi cartoon. My kids love it, and the creator is Alex Hirsch, and it's actually a pretty funny show.
I used to watch a cartoon with gnomes, but I can't remember what it was called. But they definitely weren't vomiting rainbows.
No. All right. So anyway, we'll get back to the Q&A. We do have. I'm just going to say.
Mr. Cruz or Mrs. Cruz? Jan Carlos?
Juan
Carlos? Yeah,
Juan
okay.
Carlos, Jan
Can I
Carlos.
pre-treat shirts days ahead before? Absolutely.
Yes.
You can pre-treat and let them sit in a box for months and months and months. I've printed on shirts that were pre-treated 6-8 months. After that, you just leave in a cool, dry area. Don't handle the shirts, and they'll be fine.
Now, what I will say, though, on top of that, is I have noticed that when you pre-treat and press and dry, you get your best results pretty much right
Immediately,
away.
yeah.
Because you're going to get your brighter whites and more solid colors. But when you let them sit over time, a lot of moisture that comes into the air absorbs into the fabric. So you're going to want to heat press
Absolutely.
it again before you print. So if you've let them sit for a week, I mean, here in Florida, we can let them sit for a day.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to have a lot of moisture build up.
You could almost wring the shirt out with the moisture in.
Well, maybe.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though. I mean, we always preach about having good humidity for the printers because they want to have a humid environment. The shirts will soak so much of that humidity out of the air. I mean, you'll pull a shirt out of the box, put it on a heat press, and you'd be amazed at the amount of moisture that comes out of that. And you want to have it as dry as possible. The inks don't like to bond to a shirt that has a lot of humidity and moisture in the shirt still. You'll get a lot. You'll notice that it's not getting a lot of pop, and your white inks aren't sitting on top of the shirt correctly. Make sure the shirt's dry. Right. That's a good tip is just to hit on the heat press for 5 seconds after you pull it out of the box, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, and we've even experimented with after letting it sit for a month or so, and then you take a spray bottle with some distilled water and just like mist it on and heat press it. But honestly, I still don't think that worked as well as just heat pressing it, because you're trying to mat those fibers down just in case they got roughed up. Right. But even that, I still think
use a good quality shirt, and you'll have a lot of less issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Better quality shirts will help resolve that.
Absolutely.
All right, we have any other questions? Oh, what DTG printer do you recommend? Well, today, the Mod 1. Remember, dial Eric at extension 101. Make sure you send him an email at jhill, the letter J, Hill at BelQuette.com. Make sure you do that for him, and he'll take care of it.
Yeah. No, but seriously, though, I mean, there's no best printer. It's a matter of, there's a lot of variables: your budget, your size, how much do you want out of it, what features do you need, how often are you using it. Do we feel as though there is a best printer for every single person? Yes. Is there one best printer that fulfills everybody's needs? Absolutely not.
Yes.
No.
Actually, what I found is a lot of times when people buy, they look at our products, they look at other people's products. Months later, they usually come back and say, I should have just bought yours. All right, but in all reality, what Eric is saying is actually true. Is it's not a one size fits all, and everybody's is unique. Their situations are unique. Yeah. So really, it's a matter of taking your situation and trying to determine what exactly do you need? I mean, the Mod 1 is a great printer. It prints 12.5 by 18. If you want to print 14 inches wide, you'll never print 14 inches wide without rotating the shirt, but then you're limiting how tall you can print. So again, every situation is unique.
Yeah, all machines have their pros and cons and the limitations.
Right.
And obviously, the Genesis, when it comes out, is probably the most feature-rich.
Right, and versatile, I think.
Most versatile. I mean, from a beginner to a huge, big production shop, it's a good fit for.
And we get paid to say that, but it's true.
We're not getting paid yet to say it because we haven't sold any printers.
That's true. Well, pre-sales.
Pre-sales is nice.
Just none out the door. Anybody else? Any other questions, guys?
That's it?
Okay,
that was
so
an easy one.
What we're going to do is we're just going to give you a coupon code for our shop.
Yep.
And it's rainbow. I wanted to put taste the rainbow, but it was too long of a coupon. So we're just going to say...
Is that trademarked?
Taste the rainbow? Yeah. Well, for a 10% off coupon code, I don't think the company in question is going to come after us.
Do they get a
So we're just going to say rainbow anyway. So anyway, on our shop, go to BelQuette, BelQuette. You got it right there, BelQuette.com/store. Anything you add to the shopping cart, you want to go in the upper right-hand corner, click on View Cart, and place the coupon code in there. You'll get 10% off from now until next Tuesday.
Yep.
Monday really will be last day, and Tuesday will be a new one. So
and that's
anyway,
everything, guys. That's everything. That's machines. That's ink. That's whatever is on the store. 10% off.
Right.
So, and use extension 105 and my name if you decide you want to buy a printer.
That's not what his business card said. So anyway, make sure that you rewind this or backtrack where the business card was, and you'll be able to find out what real extension and email you can contact Eric at. And again, just as a reminder, we did put up a new site, BQ.live.
Check it out, guys.
Yeah,
really
if you guys have any suggestions on what to put on there, we put a file repository on there, so we're going to start uploading more files.
Maybe we can put this up there. Somebody wants to download
Probably won't put this one up there. This is probably copyrighted.
Just a little bit.
So this one probably won't go, but some of the other stuff.
I think we're going to put the calculator that we had in the first episode.
Yeah, I still got to get that up there. But
and then the shirt that I wore last week, the duct tape goat shirt.
Right,
you can download that one.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So that's on there. You can print your own duct tape goat shirt.
We'll keep adding stuff to that. And if you guys see something you want us to do or say or whatever, definitely let us know.
And again, there's a contact page on there for us, and you can always send emails to info@bq.live. And subscribe.
Yeah, definitely.
Subscribe. You can sign up for our newsletter on there, and you can also go to YouTube, our YouTube channel, and you can subscribe there as well.
Watch all these videos.
You can find all those on BQ.live of where our YouTube channel and our Facebook page is as well.
Yeah, I think we're the only .live in our industry
so far.
Yeah, which is cool. We're always leading the way.
Any
guys.
Competition that's watching right now, don't worry about it. We already bought all .live domain names referencing your products. Just kidding. We thought about it just as a joke, but decided it probably wouldn't be the best thing to do. So anyway, we're the only one at the moment with a .live extension. So
we love it.
Yep.
Super
So anyway, until next week, we appreciate once again you guys watching with us, and again, just remember to watch every Tuesday at 4 p.m.
4 o'clock, guys. Thanks again.
Eastern time. Have
Eastern,
a good time.
See you guys. Thanks.